defiance of tyranny. You've come to fight as free men. And free men you are. What will you do without freedom? Will you fight? Fight against that? No! We will run! And we will live. Aye. Fight and you may die. Run and you'll live. At least a while. And dying in your beds many years from now, would you be willing to trade all the days from this day to that for one chance, just one chance, to come back here and tell our enemies that they may take our lives, but they'll never take our freedom?
You ready? Let's go. Yeah. For those of you that want to know what we're all about, it's like this, yo.
And welcome to Anti-Tyranny News Radio here on UCY.TV. Thank you for joining me this evening. Last few broadcasts, been bringing up, our education system here, the public education system, Common Core. I have one here, from Charlotte Iserby. This was at Save Long Island Forum. She's talking about Common Core, and I was able to get this from We Are Change Connecticut on, YouTube. So, I'm going to go ahead and play this, and we'll talk a little bit more about, what's brought up in this clip here. sorry guys, button must have not stuck on the soundboard there, but I'm starting this over for you guys.
education. And I want to point out now, if I forgot to put it later on, the former head of Xerox called on President Obama, Lou Gerstner, in the Wall Street Journal, called on President Obama 5 years ago and last July to pull down all 16,000 public school districts. That has scared me more than anything else happening in this country. What does he mean? He doesn't mean the brick and mortar. He wants to get rid of the elected school boards. You will have no say, even if there's no communist court. If you allow the school choice agenda to go forward, your child will end up in school with a common core that's probably even worse, because nobody will be complaining about it. Common core standards usher in a system of individualized psychotherapeutic learning, the standardization of teaching, testing, and technology in all 50 states, nationalizing education, and challenging traditional education based on academics to a workforce training model. No grades, no competition, from K through 12, graduated 14 or 21. That's the model. It copies the Soviet education model. I have the Soviet, we've got the Soviet paper that some educators brought over in 1959 after Eisenhower signed the first agreement with the Soviet Union, merging all of our services and everything. Eisenhower did that. In 1958, in 1959, the Office of Education sent about 20 educators over to the Soviet Union to do a report on Soviet education. And we were lucky enough to get it to, guess how? Our farmer in Ohio was at the state capitol one day, one of our people. Wasn't really looking for anything. We figured, I think he needs something to do with seeds. And he found a report lying on a table somewhere. It's in my son's website, AmericanDeception.com. On Soviet education. That's what's going in now. Because we have to have the Soviet polytech system. That's the global system going in for our children. No more education. Training. C.S. Lewis put it well when he said, he's great. He uses a few words. I need to offer C.S. Lewis. When training beats education, civilization dies. There will be no more art, no more music. Your child will be put into a slot determined by the public-private partnerships, the corporations which are dictating everything that goes on in the schools now. They're getting rid of academic teachers. They don't need them anymore. Everything's computers, no more books. The workforce training system, which I will explain to you where it came from, which is pretty frightening in itself, is the name of the game. Lifelong learning, we call it limited learning for lifelong labor. Sound familiar? That's what's going in. And that's why don't let the standards issue divert you too much, please. Because the issue is basically to stop all forms of school choice that are tax funded. There's only one real school choice. And that's what we always had, where you have to sit down, it's very painful, and you write a check. The minute you take a penny of federal money, or state or tax, or even local, you are controlled. You have to take that nasty assessment that all the parents are upset with communist score. And I love calling it communist score because that's what it is. Absolutely. Oh, by the way, there's a picture of Albert Hist. He was bringing back the UN Charter from Life magazine. Hey, Albert, how are you? Well, you succeeded. We got to the schools now. Okay. Now, the goal since the 1900s, and that's how far back it goes. The socialist global system to create the new Soviet man. Worker bees. Carnegie Corporation has been in bed for a long time, pushing this thing in. You can call it corporate fascism, socialism, communism. We're not in some form of government. But basically, when I'm talking about the school to work agenda, that's definitely communism. And I want to point out that one of the honchos for this system going in, his name is David Horvath. He was the superintendent of East Carnegie Corporation, right? Superintendent of schools in Maryland way back when. And he called for mandatory community service. That's the plan. We will all be required to do mandatory community service. Now, in order for them to get this agenda in right along, what I'm talking about, this horrible agenda, the computer, the global computerized system requires that every heartbeat on this planet be in the computer. There can be no gas. No homeschools left out there. No private school, no religious school. By the way, the Catholics are in major trouble because they're using one of Carnegie's top people, a professor of behavioral psychologist by the name of Lee Shulman, who was responsible for half the inner city kids dropping out in Chicago after the serum method was used on them for 12 years. He was responsible for that. He's received nothing but promotions all the way through, including at one time being the president of the Carnegie Foundation for the Advancement of Teaching. Now, I would not have found this out, but I'm going to tell you, without the help of a really good friend, Catholic, who's been doing tremendous research on Common Core as it applies to Catholic education. Believe it or not, the Catholics are really moving big time with Common Core going into Catholic schools. And I just read this thing out of Chicago, because I have the old papers from the Chicago Mastery Learning, where half the inner city kids dropped out. Education we call it a human tragedy of enormous proportions. Well, the man in charge, Lee Shulman, is now, hey, I didn't know. I wondered where he's going. He's in charge of Catholic Common Core. So that's for anybody who it's for all of us. I mean, if you lose a Catholic education, which really was the only thing left that was pretty good education, there's nothing left. Now, the way they're going to take us down, this has been planned for many, many years, and we have the original documents on community education, it's called. We fought it in Maine. I was a local school board member in Maine before I went into the U.S. Department of Ed, working for Reagan. But we killed community ed. Community education, well, even alternative help school-based clinics, right? Most of you parents know about school-based clinics, setting up a lot of facilities in the public school that have always been taken care of separately through doctors, whatever, not part of the education system. But the community education plan will be what we have. We will all be under the unelected board of the community school, which will not be teaching academics. It will be mostly workforce training, lifelong. So if you're my age, you're going to go, oh yeah, if you nationalize the business, said that anybody my age would be exempt from workforce training. So hey, I'm not this oldest person here. Oh, look at all of you out there with your workforce training. That's what the corporations want you to do. Well, anyway, so community ed, everybody, birth through death, womb to tomb. And there's a good article, again, by the same person, Anita Hogue, H-O-G-E, the one I mentioned, who's written this great document that I hope you will look up, Google it, go to newsreviews.com for her latest article. But she has a wonderful study called Womb to Tomb. You can Google it. Sorry to bring this back, there's also some good news stuff. So every heartbeat on this planet, so you got a little Zulu in the grass in Kenya, behind a green screen. You can learn anywhere now, so you have to be no brick and mortar. And he's part of that computer data. Just like the homeschoolers who think they're not going to be. Everybody has to be in the system. School choice is a vehicle. Did you ever think such an innocent sounding thing like school choice? It's the vehicle to get every child in the computer worldwide. Now, what I'm saying is, if we took all the documents that we have, starting back at the end of the last century, late 1800s actually, and went into a court of law, the judge would laugh, and he'd say, guilty hands down. This is absolutely the greatest tragedy that has taken place in public education. And I'm not, teachers have been fighting behind closed doors for me, believe it or not. And everybody beats up on teachers. When you find out the history of this, what I'm going to be giving you today, you will know that this whole system, this whole education thing would have crashed. We would have had school choice long ago. We would have had the Skinner method across the board, which of course it is now because of computers, catalog. Long ago, they've been fighting. Not all, some of them. What I've written is a great big book, Delivered Dumbing Down America, with all documentation that I have. If I supported public education, to the extent that you think I am right now, I do. I support public education over the destruction of the system that we have, the greatest education system in the world, pre-1965. That's where we have to go back to. Because the alternative is Lou Gerstner, Bill Gates, the Heritage Foundation, by the way, is supporting the parents who are upset about Communist Core. Heritage Foundation drafted the North American Free Trade Agreement. So how upset could they really be about Communist Core? Communist Core and school choice go together. It's like apple pie without the cheese is like the kiss without the squeeze. School choice and charters, school choice, charters, and Communist Core work together. Because Communist Core is workforce training. It's a completely different kind of education, Marxist, critical thinking, etc. So I haven't dealt much with Communist Core because we've had that for many, many years. Ever since the federal government, the Northwest Regional Lab in Portland, Oregon, developed 50,000 goals for the schools and set them all up. This was in the 1970s. So you think we haven't had this? In Maine, we had health education, and one of the objectives for ninth graders, so not kindergarten at least, we would be kindergarten now, was for them to understand the 3 types of sexual intercourse, including with animals.
1 and 3.
Yeah. Yes. And so that's what they wanted our children to understand. Now, if people think, so I'm trying to say, Communist Core is bad. We've had it for a long time. We've had terrible curriculum. We've had terrible objectives, all out of UNESCO, basically. UN. Let me point out, the UN agenda, UNESCO agenda, out of 20, education advisors. This was in the 70s, this is saying now. 19 came from communist countries. 19 out of 20. And we wonder why we tried Communist Core? We also have it because of President Reagan signed the agreements with Gorbachev that merged the 2 education systems in 1985. And we had that, and Carnegie signed the agreement with the Soviet Academy of Science which are unbelievable, to work together to develop computer courseware for early elementary school children in critical thinking. Critical thinking for early elementary. Think about it. It's all no absolutes. Lenin defined thinking as nothing is absolute. Everything is changing. So that's communist core. That's why 1 and 1 is 3. So anyway, that's the first part of my talk. Now I'm going to go back a little bit and let you all know that I really do come from Long Island. I grew up here. It's great to be back where I was born many years ago and where I spent the first 23 years of my life. Memories flooded into my consciousness, gas rationing during World War II, moving to the Brooklyn Dodgers at Evans Field before they moved, being Bill Tillman's U.S. tennis champion way back, Bill's partner at the local tennis club, weekends at Jones Beach, walking 3 miles on Port Washington Boulevard to school. Just about every day and back. Because I was a latchkey child. My parents would have been, locked up, I guess. With no one to pick me up at school or drag me home. My mother was rarely at home. She was a Red Cross volunteer during World War II at Mitchell Field. She anymore. They got these for America now. They got these young college kids coming out of all these training Marxism to go into the classroom and check the computer. No more books, forget it. No more books, you know what? I don't want to repeat this, but what's the name of that town that's nearby here? It's called Wyandotte? Well, in 1971, I got a hold of this individual education newsletter, and they had their first conference in Wyandotte. And they were very proud because this was the beginning of the computers and individualized education. Because you need IEPs, you need individualized education if you're going to do computers. You need individualized education if you're looking forward to workforce training. Obviously, every child's probably going to have sort of a different job, So, IEP. So, anyway, they're very proud of the individual education, what they call this newsletter, it's called. They said this is our first newsletter. We're going national now. And they talked about how one of the top, Dwight Allen, I think his name is, the top president of a college or something. Down with books. That's what I say. The people researching Common Core have got to do their homework. They've got to get into the research, or else they're going to be going nowhere. And even if they win with the Common Core battle, it will come back to haunt them. Of course, in the charter school, or any school that takes tax money. Now, I believe we're going to have, after I speak, the individual that I respect more than anybody in this country, really, it's Edward Griffin. And I don't know if he's going to be talking about the stuff here. I can't imagine him not doing so. But Edward Griffin, when we talk about the agreements to the Soviet Union, he knows all about that because he interviewed Norman Dodd, who was the research director for the committee that investigated the tax-exempt foundations in 1954. I knew Norman Dodd as well. And Edward Griffin's going to tell you something about that probably, but the most important thing is that Mr. Dodd, when he went up to New York as part of the investigation, he talked to the president of the Ford Foundation, Ronald Gaither. Gaither said, Mr. Dodd, like, don't blame us. We got our instructions from the White House. I guess I really should. Mr. Solenn, I don't know if he really understands that it was Dwight Eisenhower, right? And our instructions are to use our money to bring about a merger with the Soviet Union. Now, a lot of you know that quote. But that's what we're looking at right now. The Soviet Union, people say it's dead. Well, yeah, because it was their efficient law. The communism is alive and well. It's just like Christianity's not dead. Islam's not dead. Communism's not dead. These isms don't die. Communism is very much alive in this country. Through a regional government mainly, which we have dealt with. Regionalism is communism. All these unelected councils that you have running your lives, withdrawing them yet of boundaries, pulling the boundaries out so you're losing your elected officials. And you've got to be very careful when you're explaining to people what this is, because they don't know that we already have the foundation for a communist system through regional government. The only thing that they don't have yet, and now we can count on school choice for that, is the unelected councils across the board. And when the school part of the budget, the United States federal budget, is handled by unelected councils, that's the second biggest expenditure in this country after defense. It's very likely to say, why do we have to have a bunch of commissioners or a selector, or, whatever we have clerk. And then they'll ask, because we will have no place to go, to complain. Now, a few years ago when I've been, doing a lot of radio for many, many years, sort of beating up on the American people for not understanding, because we've all had the research up here for the people, and books that we've written, etc. And something funny happened. I sat down and I thought, oh, I'm so tired of myself.
I'm going to stop it there. Sorry for the audio problems. Hopefully you guys can hear me. I think my soundboard is definitely going out. So, hopefully, not too many problems with my mic right now. I know you guys couldn't hear me earlier. I think my gain volume knobs are going out on all of the channels. So, hopefully you guys can hear me. One thing that, we have to look at the public education system is that it from the beginning, it was set up to conform a nation. They wanted to standardize a nation. And this was done by socialist, progressive thinking, presidents. You look into Roosevelt, Woodrow and stuff, and some other presidents, and what they wanted to accomplish with, a federalized national public school system. And when these public school systems rely on federal grants and federal money and, all this to operate, then they get forced into whatever they're trying to push, their agenda. And, this is, one thing, your tax money is being taken from you, and they go, well, if you want it back, you have to abide by these rules. And whoever's in charge is making the rules. And they do want to attack homeschoolers and private schoolers and Catholic schools, and there's a real issue out there with our public school systems, and we have to do something to get a handle on it. It's not going away. Up, I think my mic cut out again. Sit there and mess with that gain volume. Okay. I think you should be able to hear me. Okay. I have something here. I got a couple things out of benswan.com. This one was posted, on the 9th. But this is, Libertarian candidate for governor in Florida arrested for driving without a license. And, I can't remember if I brought this up in last broadcast. I've been so busy, my mind's kind of getting a little boggled around here. But, the Florida Libertarian candidate, Adrian Willey, he was arrested for driving without a license, which he gave his license up a few years ago, and basically he wants to use this as a basically a kind of a campaign, a push to test the constitutionality of the Real ID. And I really don't think it's going to go anywhere, and I don't know if it's going to help him in the polls. It's a form of civil disobedience, and that's great. But here's a quote from him. He said, "I did surrender my license back in 2011. I did so in protest of the Real ID Act. As some of your listeners will know, when you go to renew your license in a state that is Real ID compliant, you have to submit an array of documentation, including marriage license, divorce decrees, bank statements, and you also have to submit to a biometric facial recognition scan that is maintained in a federal database." Willey surrendered his driver license in 2011, according to his campaign manager. Willey wasn't trying to keep it a secret. I really don't know how far this is going to go, how much this might help him, if it will help him at all. But, that doesn't mean that he shouldn't have the right to protest. So, that's his civil disobedience. I don't know if the timing was the perfect timing, but, it is what it is. Another one here out of, I'm getting this from benswan.com. He was getting it from 8 News Now, iTeam. And that's out of Las Vegas. Says the FBI has launched a full investigation into death threats, intimidation, and possible weapons violations relating to the standoff between the Bureau of Land Management and Bundy Ranch supporters, according to 8 News Now out of Las Vegas. The first people to be interviewed by FBI agents were Metro Police and Sheriff Doug Gillespie. According to News 8 Now, the Metro Police claimed to have intervened to protect the lives of federal employees from 400 or so Bundy supporters and armed militia members. Metro officers stated that they feared for their lives that day due to assemblage of firepower that the protesters had gathered and because many of those assembled pointed weapons at officers, taunted them, and told them they should be ready to die. Which, I watched the videos. I've never once seen anybody even suggest that, ready to die. I have no idea what the hell that's about. I would say that, unless there's any evidence of that, it looks to be a lie to me. Taking it that there was quite a bit of video taken of that whole standoff, and you can hear what people are yelling, and I never heard anybody say that. Assistant Sheriff Lombardo, who was put in charge of the Metro officers by Sheriff Doug Gillespie, stated that the federal authorities are conducting an investigation, and I'm pretty confident is going to go into the future, adding that yes, there's definitely going to be consequences, definitely. This is unacceptable behavior. If we let it go, it would continue into the future, referring to anyone caught on videotape or in pictures pointing a gun at BLM officials or Metro officers. Bundy supporters have insisted no one pointed weapons at BLM or Metro officers, but when a squad of Metro officers were interviewed, many claimed that they seen exactly that. Metro Police Sergeant Tom Jenkins, who was interviewed by the FBI, said, "It is not a rumor. When we first got out there and made a left to divide I-15, that is all you saw. You saw kids and women and horses in the backdrop, and then men with guns laying on the ground in the back of pickup trucks. We are going, wow, this would never happen in Las Vegas, but it was there. That is not a rumor. It's reality, and I saw it with my own eyes. Pointing a loaded weapon at federal agent is illegal, and individuals in the Las Vegas are regularly shot dead for pointing a weapon at Metro officers, but one must question why the federal sniper teams had the go-ahead to put the Bundy family and their supporters in the sights of their weapons with no repercussions. Bundy supporters have been adamant in claiming no weapons were aimed at Metro officers or the federal agents, and that the only ones pointing were the BLM agents and their sniper teams. I do believe there were maybe a couple guns pointed at agents. You see the one that's laying down on the bridge, but you see the rest of them on the bridge that they're just holding their guns to the side. Now, I did see federal agents pointing guns at protesters there to retrieve private property. Did see that. I seen some. Not all. It was kind of both. But before all this even happened, there was federal snipers aiming guns at Bundy protesters and the family. And like the article says here, no repercussions. The question that really comes out of the story, I do see lies, misinformation, we'll put it that way, on both sides. They should be ready to die. I never heard that in any of the videos I've seen. And Vince, he was on the ground. He never heard anybody say that. At least he never mentioned that to me when I asked, and it seems to be trying to really make these people out to be really just cold-hearted killers, and that wasn't the case that I seen. The case that I seen from the video, from the reports, it basically seemed like we had a whole bunch of protesters, not armed, that were marching towards the federal agents to retrieve cattle that was private property from federal bureaucrats. Call them agents if you want, but they're bureaucrats. They work for a bureaucratic agency. They might be an agent, but they're not law enforcement. Why are they armed? For they can steal people's property. A bureaucratic agency stealing people's property. Because now they don't have to go through the sheriff's department, which is elected. You see the problem here? If they go through the sheriff's department and the sheriff is elected, and, well, if he wants to remain in office, he better do what the people want. Therefore, he might not carry out what a federal bureaucracy is asking him to do. If the BLM went to the sheriff and goes, well, we got a court order to seize these cattle. And the sheriff goes, well, I don't think this is constitutional, therefore I'm not going to seize them. And I'm not deputizing you to seize them either. Then you have a problem. So what do? They just go, well, we're allowed to have armed agents because they're agents. Now the word agents means you have to be armed. More like military, if you looked at it. There's a problem with that. It's another way of bypassing the Constitution. Your sheriff is supposed to be the one. So, if we look at the whole picture, there was wrong on both sides. And the problem is they're saying that these people were going to fire. Well, the militia, I believe they adamantly said that they are there to make sure that federal agents were not going to fire on peaceful protesters, which it looked like they were prepared to do. It looked like bureaucrats with guns were about to fire on peaceful protesters demanding their private property back, and that the federal agents didn't have authority to perform law enforcement duties. And that seems about right. Now, pointing guns at federal agents. I believe I might have seen some of that. Not from the majority of the militia, but there might have been a couple. Definitely will, concede that. But what happens when governments can run around pointing guns at the ordinary people, citizens, whatever you want to call, your individual self, when they can run around with a monopoly on being able to point guns and get their way? When that starts becoming abusive, who's going to stop these people? I don't think we're completely there, but I think we're definitely, heading that way. And a lot of people blame Obama and Bush, and have to look in the mirror. We have to own up to the facts. Too many of us have been blinded for too long and silent for too long. And, you know, I believe in libertarian ideology, the non-aggression principle, volunteerism. But I'm always willing to work with the true, you know, really libertarian thinking people, though, that might be still constitutional leaning, as a stepping stone in a direction. And guess what? Your sheriff is probably going to be the most important person you can possibly elect. And, you know, I told you guys about the story up in Elkhart, Indiana. And the harassment of the Amish farmer because of his raw milk and co-ops. And the sheriff there kicked him out. You know, you hear of the sheriff that, you know, told the federal agents off. They said, "Oh, we got a SWAT team." He said, "Good, I have one too." And they never came back. If you truly want to stop a government from being tyrannical, it's to really have true liberty-loving people working at your local level. We focus a lot too much on the federal level when it's completely corrupt. And they claim to have complete power. And with complete power comes complete corruption. Absolute power, absolute corruption. So if you're going to go the constitutional route, look at your state level. And then also get your community to stand behind true liberty loving people. People that aren't left or right. The people say that, you know, freedom is for everyone. I'm not here to debate who should have the freedom. And we need more local governments that are willing to step up and stand between federal government and the local. So, you know, look at that when, you know, you're going to vote for people. Are they a lot of talk, or are these people that are willing to truly, you know, take the blows along with you, you know? Because we know that there's people out there that hate liberty. These people truly think that they are somehow morally superior to you, therefore they should have control over you. And they will bash you, and they will, you know, throw mud at you. And you have to be strong mentally and just have the endurance mentally to fight for what you truly believe in. And, you know, I seen this one out of Ben Swan. Minnesota, criminal conviction required to seize property. Says here, Governor Mark Dayton, Democrat from Minnesota, signed a bill Tuesday that required a criminal conviction of an individual before the government can claim ownership of their property in civil forfeiture cases. In civil forfeiture cases, law enforcement seizes property that they believe has been involved in a crime. The government then directly sues the item or items in question, cash, jewelry, homes, etc., rather than the owner, and the burden of proof is then placed onto the owner to prove that the property was not part of a crime. The process of going through civil courts to retrieve possessions is costly, sometimes costing more than the seized property itself. When the government is allowed to seize property without having to prove guilt, there's great potential to abuse that power. In 2009, the Metro Gang Strike Force, a Minnesota police unit made up of officers from multiple jurisdictions with little oversight, was discovered to have been abusing its power in a civil forfeiture. While their mission was to address gang-related crime, it became known that the strike force members had been stopping people with no connection to any crime or gang activity and confiscating their money and personal items without filing subsequent criminal charges. Some employees have kept seized items for personal use and cash, and many items simply disappeared from evidence rooms. The group was shut down, and about $840,000 in restitution was given to victims of the strike force. Civil forfeiture is also referred to as policing for profit because it's general practice for police to transfer a large percentage of money and property from seizures to their operating budgets. In Minnesota, forfeiture revenues rose 75% between 2003 and 2010, despite a decline in crime. In this new bill, people who have been found innocent of crimes no longer hold the burden of proof in civil forfeiture. The case now may go through small claims court, and prosecutors must prove that the seized property was directly related to a crime. It was largely the attention surrounding the Metro Gang Strike Force scandal that prompted this reform in Minnesota. Despite protests from law enforcement, civil forfeiture is no longer a stranglehold on innocent people in the state. So, there's an example of what can be done at a local level, to make sure that your rights are not being abused. There's a lot more that we could be doing and should be doing. I truly believe that. Really, it's something that it's a move in the right direction. Now, will this stop them? Will they find ways around the loopholes? Find the loopholes in the law? More than likely, yes, they will. And we have to be ready to address those when they come up. And again, making laws is not going to stop criminals, and when the criminals are in government, the Constitution is supposed to be the law of the land that all other laws have to abide by, and that every politician is supposed to abide by, and see how good that works out. They'll twist the words and change the definition. That's one thing they love doing, is just changing the definition. And the main way they do is going, what do people like? People like liberty, so we'll start using the word liberty. Well, that's where liberal, Liberal used to be the people that were fighting for liberty, or supposedly fighting for liberty. Classic liberal. Thomas Jefferson. It's just amazing, how they twist things around. I am going to attempt something here. Yeah, I know. And hopefully this next news network update headline block plays here. I take a short break.
Has condemned the killing of a French journalist in the Central African Republic. French authorities say troops found the body of Camille Lepage during the search of a vigilante group's vehicle in a western region of the country. The UN Security Council said that those responsible for the killing shall be held accountable.
Rescuers have been trying to reach hundreds of miners trapped after a fire broke out in a coal mine in western Turkey. Disaster officials say 200 of them are trapped in the shaft about 2/3 of a mile underground. The fire that killed at least 205 workers began after a transformer blew up. As it continues to burn, it prevents rescuers from reaching the other 200 miners. Negotiators for the authorities in Nigeria say that they may have to deal with the Islamic group Boko Haram if they want the girls freed. Meanwhile, there is confusion that not all of the girls shown in a video released by the captors were from the Chibok boarding school for the April 14th raid. In the past, rights groups have accused Nigeria of using illegal tactics such as illegal searches, torture, and extrajudicial killings to crack down on the militants.
Searchers have recovered more bodies from the sunken South Korean ferry Sewol. The findings of 5 more bodies raised the number of those confirmed dead to 281 bodies. A further 23 remain missing. Most of the dead and missing are high school students who were taking the ferry to the South Korean resort island of Jeju for a field trip. The disaster caused anger on the lax safety standards and failures in ferry rescue guidelines.
Several factories have been burnt out in Vietnam in anti-China protests. The fires broke out in an industrial park in southern Vietnam. This is during tension over the South China Sea. The protests came after China moved a drilling rig into waters claimed by Vietnam earlier this month. 3 factories were set afire with no injuries reported. Many people were arrested. Officials in China have named the British executive that they believe was involved in bribing hospitals to use their drugs. GlaxoSmithKline was also accused of telling their staff to bribe officials in China to use its medical products. Chinese officials detained 4 GSK workers last year after announcing they were investigating GSK and their massive bribery network. The pharmaceutical giant is also facing a criminal investigation into similar allegations in Poland.
The Ukraine has made a bid to host a new round of talks in Kiev in efforts to find a peaceful solution to the crisis in the east of this country. The talks will include members of the interim government and regional leaders, but pro-Russian separatists have refused to take part. The bid is part of a roadmap designed by the Organization for Security and Cooperation in Europe. The Vienna-based group has named veteran German diplomat Wolfgang Ischinger as a moderator for Wednesday's talks. Portugal is to launch a criminal inquiry on the football coach of Brazil, Luis Felipe Scolari. Reports say he is denying the charges of tax evasion. Mr. Scolari coached Portugal's national team from 2003 to 2008. The allegations come from this time period. Scolari has stated he always declared his earnings in all the countries he worked in. The investigation comes less than a month before the World Cup begins in Brazil. Scientists researching the heart rates of mice that exercise have found a change in molecules in the part of the heart that develops the natural heartbeat. They say this may be the reason why athletes have low resting heart rates and more rhythm disturbances as they get older. Experts say adults should do a maximum and no more of 150 minutes of mid-aerobic training a week. This does not have to be done all in one go, but can be spread out in small boosts during the week.
Mexico has set up a new security plan for one of its most violent states in the country, Tamaulipas. Pledging more security troops and provision of intel work, government officials hope that a new phase against powerful drug cartels will restore peace in the region. This follows after last week's incident when the Mexican intelligence chief Salvador Haro Munoz was killed. His car was ambushed by armed men in the state capital. Iran's nuclear talks have resumed in Vienna, with spectators noting caution. The European Union's Catherine Ashton and Iran's Mohammad Javad Zarif are leading the negotiations. Officials say the talks are very difficult as there are still significant gaps between Iran and the six world powers. The country has been suffering economically due to sanctions placed on it till it curbs its uranium enrichment.
And the Sugarman director Malik Ben-Jalloul has died at the age of 36. Police said his body was found late last night in the Stockholm area. They don't know yet the cause of the death. Ben-Jalloul was best known for Searching for Sugarman, which won the Oscar and BAFTA prizes for Best Documentary in 2013. And a study done in Australia suggests that an arrival of huge blooms of box jellyfish can now be predicted due to the unusual weather systems globally. Researchers say the change in winds can determine where and when the jellyfish could strike. If touched by these luminous sea creatures, it is said to be excruciatingly painful and even may require hospitalization, or in some cases, it can result in death.
An ocean explorer claims he has found the wreck of Christopher Columbus's Santa Maria, the famed flagship of the Italian explorer's 1492 expedition. Barry Clifford has said his team has measured and taken photos of the wreck. He says he is working with the Haitian government to protect the site for a more detailed investigation. A dip in Romanian and Bulgarian migrant workers has been shown in the UK. This is since Britain lifted its employment restrictions in January. Although it is down by 4,000 since then, it shows it is up 29,000 from a year ago. On January 1st, Bulgarians and Romanians gained the same rights to work in the UK as other EU citizens. British Prime Minister David Cameron told his members of parliament that the reduction was notable.
The United Nations Special Envoy to Syria is stepping down. Lakhdar Brahimi says all the death and destruction has led to the loss of the Syria the people loved. Mr. Brahimi took over the role in 2012 from former UN Chief Kofi Annan. Both failed to find a peaceful solution to the 3-year conflict that has led around 150,000 people dead. This follows the French foreign minister claiming he has credible evidence that the Syrian government used chemical weapons dozens of times since 2013. A man smashes his truck into a TV station in Baltimore while sending tweets saying that he's God. The 29-year-old suspect, described by police as mentally ill, gave a running commentary of the situation during the hours he was barricaded while watching his barricaded ordeal unfold as cameras filmed and broadcasted it on local TV. The station and a nearby school were evacuated.
A European court ruling has redefined what it means to Google people. The decision will require Google to clean up its internet search results to protect people who can show how the information has tarnished their reputation. The landmark ruling empowers around 500 million people living in 28 European Union countries to prevent Google and other search engines from sharing unpermitted information. It will also change their role into transforming them into caretakers of personal reputations. The United Nations has announced that wars in 2013 have displaced around 33.3 million people from their homes. Driven largely by Syria's civil war, violence and conflict have resulted in the worst figures since the genocide in Rwanda and Bosnia in the 1990s. The figures collected by the Geneva-based Internal Displacement Monitoring Center only cover 58 countries.
The World Health Organization has said that MERS is not considered an emergency yet, despite a recent increase in cases. Since 2012, MERS has infected more than 500 people and killed 145, mostly in the Middle East. The majority of cases have been in Saudi Arabia. Cases have spread within the region.
Okay, I'm going to stop it there. One thing I kind of want to get into was the UK. Why does the socialist UK, the world government UK, why do they still have better privacy online? There was a documentary I watched, I'm trying to remember the name right offhand. Terms of service may apply. And it really got into what our companies here in the U.S. are doing with our privacy. And in a way we agree to it. Unknowingly we agree to it. You sit there and you hit the I agree button on Google or YouTube or Facebook or, any of these services that are supposedly free. And you're basically giving up your life. Anything that you do through those services are just being collected. There was one guy in the documentary that, I forget where he was, but it was somewhere over in Europe where they had to disclose something, and he was able to go and get 3 years. He'd been on Facebook for 3 years, and he had probably about a stack of papers that was about a foot tall of all the information that Facebook had collected on him in 3 years. Now, we all have this now. We're online. Our data has been collected and sold. Anything free we use in America is basically up for grabs and being sold to governments, corporations. It's really getting sickening. And you have over in Europe more protection of your privacy. That's the state we're in right now. Give me a second here. I'm trying to find the article. Easiest way is go to Drudge Report. Hopefully, if it hasn't already been buried, it should have. But it might have. Huh. I do have one here though. Oh, let's see where. Okay, I did find one. This one's coming out of Yahoo. San Francisco Reuters. Google Inc. is already getting requests to remove objectionable personal information from its search engines. After Europe's top court ruled that subjects have the right to be forgotten. A source familiar with the matter said on Wednesday, the world's #1 internet search company has yet to figure out how to handle an expected flood of requests after Tuesday's ruling, said the source, who is not authorized to speak on the record about the issue. This decision by the Court of Justice of the European Union, which affects the region's 500 citizens, which I think that's wrong, requires that internet search services remove information deemed inadequate or irrelevant or no longer relevant. Failure to do so can result in fines. Google will need to build up an army of removal experts in each of the 28 European Union countries, including those where Google does not have operations. The source said whether those staffers merely remove controversial links or actually judge the merits of individual takedown requests are among the many questions Google has yet to figure out, the source said. European Union can submit takedown requests directly to the internet companies rather than local authorities or publishers under the ruling. If a search engine elects not to remove the link, a person can seek redress from the courts. The criteria for determining which takedown requests are legitimate is not completely clear from the decision, said Jeffrey Rosen, a law professor at the George Washington University and head of the National Constitution Center. The ruling seems to give search engines more leeway to dismiss takedown requests for links to web pages about public figures, in which the information is deemed to be of public interest. But search engines may erase on the side or err on the side of caution and remove more links than necessary to avoid liability, said Rosen. A longtime critic of such laws, he was asked by Google to speak to reporters on Tuesday's ruling, but has no formal relationship with the company. Search engines will also have to authenticate requests in order to ensure that the person seeking a link's removal is actually the one he or she claims to be. Google is the dominant search engine in Europe, commanding about 93% of the market, according to StatCounter Global Statistics. Microsoft Corp Bing has 2.4%, and Yahoo Inc. has 1.7%. Google had some experience dealing with takedown requests in its YouTube video website, which has a process to remove uploads that infringe copyrights, which I'll go ahead and let you know is complete BS because you get false copyrights all the time and they make it almost impossible to fight these things. I've fought quite a bit of them, and some of them are fictitious, copyright claims, and they still won't take it off. So that's probably what you'll have to deal with through Google. Google has automated much of the process with a content ID system that automatically scans upload videos for particular content that media companies have provided to YouTube. Google may be able to create similar technology to address the EU requirements, said BGC Partners and Analysis, Colin Gills. Well, that was about a mouthful. Even if Google does not automate the process, the extra cost of hiring staffers is likely to be insignificant to a company that generates roughly $60 billion in revenue last year. Gill said if Google were to pay staffers $15 an hour to process takedown requests, for example, a company could get 1 million hours of work for $15 or $15 million, he said. It's the cost of doing business for them. Google has said it is disappointed with the ruling, which it noted different dramatically from a non-binding opinion by the ECJ's court advisor last year. The opinion said deleting information from search results would interfere with the freedom of expression. Yahoo is carefully reviewing the decision to assess the impact for its business and its users. A spokeswoman said in a statement, since our founding almost 20 years ago, we've supported an open and free internet, not one shaded by censorship. And this ain't censoring. This is saying that you could put in a request to have your personal whatever removed or information about you. If you go on Facebook right now, here in America, and you delete something, it's not deleted. It's still in Facebook's database. This would allow you to say, no, I want to be completely deleted. If I take down my Facebook account, I want it deleted out of your database. Because I no longer have a Facebook account. I am no longer doing business with you. I want my data deleted. I could see people going, this isn't free market. But, we don't really have too many companies out there that you can get a terms of service that's one little page with, bigger than normal size font that you can read clearly. It's, 25 pages. Which is unnecessary. Why is there 25 pages? Why are contracts always so big and with legal terms? It's to hide the truth about them. It's to confuse the normal person. And really, a lot of times, lawyers are confused by their own language. Because by using their language, it leaves everything broad. So all the language is so broad that it can be interpreted different. If there was a company like Facebook that could give me terms of service that was real short, that I could read, and it assures me that my privacy is mine, and I have complete control over it. If I delete something that's not in their database no more, they're going to get my business. If they don't give a backdoor to governments, they'll get my business. Here's another one. Who watches the watchers? This one's out of Politico. Big data goes unchecked. Okay. Give my computer a second here to catch up. The National Security Agency might be tracking your phone calls, but private industry is prying far more deeply into your life. Commercial data brokers know if you have diabetes. Your electric company can see what time you come home at night. And tracking companies can tell where you go on weekends by snapping photos of your car's license plate and cataloging your movements. Private companies already collect, mine, and sell as many as 75,000 individual data points on each consumer, according to a Senate report. And they're poised to scoop up volumes more. as technology unleashes a huge wave of connected devices from sneaker insoles to baby onesies to car and refrigerators that quietly track, log, and analyze your every move. Congress and the administration have moved to rein in the National Security Agency in the year since Edward Snowden disclosed widespread government spying. But Washington has largely given private sector data collection a free pass. The result, a widening gap in oversight as private data mining races ahead. Well, that's because that's where NSA gets their main stuff from, because, well, why do they need to build even more data centers when Google's doing it all for them, or Facebook's doing it all for them, or Twitter's doing it all for them? And they could just collect that data from them and put it in another database and let the computer go, okay, we'll take this guy's Twitter, his Facebook, any Google, we'll put it all in one thing and spin it about and come out with what kind of person this person is. There's a lot of stuff, I don't even look up online. I just get a magazine because, well, I do enough looking up online that, fishing. I'm a big fisherman. Yeah. So I get magazines. It's something different. I don't like to just be stuck on the internet. Don't get to read much anymore, it seems. But I do got some more that I do want to read. Says here, Congress and the administration have moved to rein in. Okay, I already got through that point. Where was I? Says, the result, a widening gap in oversight as private data mining races ahead. Companies are able to scoop up ever more information and exploit it with ever greater sophistication. Yet a Politico review has found deep reluctance in D.C. to exercise legislation, regulatory, or executive power to curb the big business of corporate cyber snooping. The inertia and lack of serious legislation push on private sector data mining has several causes. Many Republicans are averse to any new regulation of business. Many Democrats are skittish about aligning campaign donors or alienating campaign donors in Silicon Valley. It's been more than 2 years, and you see that they didn't even mention that, well, the NSA gets their stuff from these companies. The federal government uses all this data mining. So why would they want to get rid of it? Again, no mention of that. It's been more than 2 years since President Barack Obama announced, after 2 years of deliberation, that he would push for a Consumer Privacy Bill of Rights. Since then, no legislation has been introduced to implement it, and no regulations have been crafted. White House officials now acknowledge the proposal is outdated and may have been so on the day it was introduced. Earlier this month, the White House again raised warning about the erosion of personal privacy with a report that clearly delineated the risks as well as the promise of the big data revolution before calling for still more study. Polls suggest that Americans want more protections. A national survey by Pew Research last fall found 2/3 of internet users said current laws weren't adequate to protect consumer privacy online. Well, see, the problem what I have with this is, why do we need laws? Because government is already basically pushed. This started with the Bush administration. Well, It started even before the Bush administration. But, the last Bush that was in power really basically said, that these companies needed to give us this information. The Patriot Act, all this stuff plays into this. So it's government in the first place that, has made it a big business to data mine. They want the collection. And these companies are not stupid. They're making billions of dollars selling your privacy to governments, to corporations. This is money. And it's originally propped up by government. Now we're calling for government to pass legislation. Do you think it'll stop your privacy? Or will it just hide it better? Will it make it where no one's allowed to talk about anything that is held? Because, we're here to protect the privacy, but when we do gather data on someone, it's because they're a suspect and that's not to be disclosed to the public. That's what I see legislation coming out to be. They'll make it sound good, but in reality, it'll say that, if we do collect data on you, then it's gotta be quiet because that means you're a suspect or a criminal. Well, what happens when everybody is a suspect and criminal? Kind of the way they treat you now. They data mine to prove you innocent because you're already presumed guilty, is basically what I get from it. Says here, but far from cracking down, the administration has floated several proposals for using data mining to advance its goals. The Pentagon, for instance, is considering tapping into commercial data banks to monitor the behavior of employees and contractors with top security clearances, so it can keep an eye out for bankruptcies, domestic violence charges, and other signs of instability. Senate Commerce Committee Chairman Ray J. Rockefeller, who has introduced legislation to rein in private data brokers, resigned to the internet remaining a kind of free-for-all for cyber snooping. Once we decide we're going with the internet, we gave up our privacy, he said in an interview. It's always the double side. It's the greatest discovery ever made and also the worst things that ever happened. Asked if he sees a disconnect between the intense focus on the NSA surveillance and the hands-off approach to private sector data mining, Rockefeller responded, "You better believe it. Companies that see big profits and big data are pushing back against any talk of crackdown. Their mantra, regulation, could stifle innovation. This is a situation in which technology, new data uses, and new approaches are occurring and evolving very rapidly. And so if parameters were engraved in legislative stone, it could easily be the wrong measure, the wrong safeguards, and may very well inhibit the development of useful, socially desirable businesses and technology," said Alan Rawl, a lawyer for technology companies and former member of George W. Bush's White House Privacy Board. Hey. Now, the whole problem with this is, the company has the right to maybe use your data. How do they get around this, though? Again, back to that documentary scene, talking about Facebook. Facebook over the years has increased their default on your profile. They changed the terms of service, and overnight, things that you had private go public again. because they changed all the defaults, then it defaults your stuff back. Then your private stuff's public again. Well then, because of their terms of service, they're able to use that now. Or, let's say you might have said something private to a group of friends that you have on a list on Facebook, and you did a status update, but it was only for them. And it was talking about someone else, how you're aggravated with that person. Oh, all of a sudden they changed their default in terms of service, and now they can read it. This has happened on Facebook multiple times. There's no opt-in. You have to opt out. It's not about them having the ability there for you to opt in and share it with everyone and not be so private about it. But they make you have to opt out after you've already shared it and opted out. Then they change defaults and you have to opt out again and hope people that you didn't want to see something didn't see it. Well, they are a private company. This is what they do. This is their terms of service. This is basically what you agreed to, and they put it on there that they can change it at any time. We're getting to a point where it's pretty evident. Here in America, we don't have a right to our privacy online from these companies that we're voluntarily using, not knowing what's all in terms of service most of the time. Again, where's the companies that give you a paragraph? Here's your terms of service. We can put it down in a paragraph. You agree to it or not? No, we have to have all this legal jargon and hiding of what they're truly trying to do by manipulating you, and most of the time just putting something out there that is so long that you don't even read it. A lot of times start to read it and get tired of reading it and just hit, I agree. It just seems so manipulative, and it's caused the EU to have to do what they did, and it's just, I want to see more companies pop up that absolutely just will not cave in. Look at LavaBit. That person stood up. The founder of LavaBit stood up. Supposed to be encrypted, completely private email that no one could get into. And when the government goes, well, we're not going to allow you to have it private, just give us everything. And he goes, no, I deleted it now. Can't have it. It's private. Do you understand what private is? That's their private stuff. Because, they didn't come with a warrant for each individual to have their information collected. They go, well, Edward Snowden used it, so give us everything. No. Get a warrant for every single person you want. Prove in a court. And again, it needs to be a court that's public, not some hidden bureaucratic BS court. And you're seeing people like at the Bunny Ranch. You're seeing people out there in Albuquerque. You're seeing other groups starting to get extremely, peed off. Locals getting peed off. Tired of the feds. Tired of the local corruption. And, it's time for people to stand behind the groups. I'm not promoting violence at all. And, I like I said, there was things and I brought this up, when I had Vince on and we were talking about it, that there was some violations of, gun safety going on. There was definitely violations, on both sides. On both sides, there was fingers on triggers. There was guns pointed at people. There was BLM agents pointing guns at people that didn't have guns. And therefore, militia was pointing guns at BLM agents. People are like, yeah, those bad militia. Well, you know what? If those militia weren't there with firearms, what do you think would have happened to all those people? Because those people weren't backing down. Those people were ready to die for their beliefs. Our government would have, attacked them. They didn't attack them because there were people that were there that had equal power. Well, maybe not equal power because they still were outgunned. But all of a sudden when it's the federal agents that have a gun pointed at them, now it's wrong. But it wasn't wrong that federal agents were pointing guns at, there was women and children. And your federal agents were pointing guns at women and children then? So that's better than militia members pointing guns at federal agents that are pointing guns at kids and women? I'm a little confused here. Get your shit straight. Take care, everybody.